Hi, I'm Ralph Altenried. I'm the president and owner of RSA Financial. I'm very fortunate to be in Vancouver to see Greg Romand in person again. He usually comes here every couple of years to advise and give an update as to what Centurion's doing presently and what they're going to be doing going forward in the next 3 to 5 years. There'll be other advisors in the room, such as myself. RSA Financial is registered with Tribute Capital based out of Calgary. They are an exempt market dealer in Canada. I'm involved as a registered registrant, which means that I'm being watched by the Securities Commission from the province of BC, province of Alberta, province of Ontario, and across Canada federally. Centurion is a company I've been personally involved with for the last 9 years. I started working with Greg Romand back in 2009 when the company at that time was about 50 million in assets under management. Today they have grown to close to 2 billion in assets under management. This event is very unique in the fact that most other issuers don't do this. Centurion is one of the very few companies that actually participates with the advisors and registrants across Canada so that they can keep us informed to what they're doing and what's going on. Centurion is one of the few issuers that actually puts together an event like this.
My name is Greg Romand. I'm President and CEO of Centurion Asset Management. Born and raised in Canada, went to business school at Western University in Ontario, and from there I went on to a career in trading. I was first with Citibank and worked with Citibank in Toronto, New York, Singapore, Tokyo, and then I moved on after a number of years to AIG, and I was with AIG in Hong Kong, London, and Singapore, and there I was head of emerging markets and derivatives and sat on the risk committee for AIG for all of its trading positions. I left in about 2002, and from there I was in Singapore, stayed in Singapore for a little bit while I figured out what I was going to do next, and then decided to come to Canada in 2003, bring my family, and start Centurion. So the reason I started Centurion was, I'd spent my time when I was in investment banking and trading. There was restrictions on what I could do because I could basically trade anything, so there was almost nothing I could buy for myself. So my investments at the time were almost entirely real estate. And I got to a point where I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing for my day job, and I found that I was enjoying what I was doing in my sideline investing far more. And so I set about trying to figure out what I was going to do in the next chapter of my life and where I was going to do it. So I spent a lot of time looking around the world at apartments and where would be the best place. And oddly enough, after all my research, Ontario was the best place because it had the highest returns that I could get in a low-risk jurisdiction, and lo and behold, I was raised here, so it just seemed everything to line up. And it really started originally as a way for me to deploy my own capital and do what I enjoyed. So we have a number of different businesses in the company. One is apartments, which is our core business. We are also student housing, so we are the largest institutional non-governmental owner of student housing in the country, the only investable REIT, so it's another business of ours. We also are money lenders, so we lend mezzanine and bridge type financing in real estate. We also invest in the equity of new developments and apartments. And our fifth business is we provide corporate debt financing. And those 5 different businesses would be in 3 different funds. So the fund is sold by a number of different channels. So we have portfolio managers who make investments. So they might be independent money managers. They'll come through them. Bank, IROC dealers, exempt market dealers. We have family offices. We have advisory firms that work for pension funds, institutional investors. We have the full gambit of investors. We don't allow non-registered people to sell our funds. It's not in compliance with the rules. It's not a business that we're interested in. So people who are registered and understand our product are very important to us because without proper advice, I don't think that most investors would understand what they're buying or what we offer, and it's important that advisors or investors have that personal advice before making any kind of investment. Performance over the last decade has been really good. So Our prime fund, or our REIT, which has assets today of about $1.7 billion, and that has done compounded returns around 12 without a losing quarter. So really solid rates of returns. Total organization assets under management, 1 3/4, 1.8. Where we should finish the year with the acquisitions we have in the pipeline of around $2 billion. It's very competitive out there today, and we wanted to be able to find assets that we want to own long term in the funds. And so we built this pretty strong pipeline. We have about $1 billion of options from our development pipeline that we have the right to buy into our funds. And so that's one path of growth. The other is we're starting to expand into the United States. We see lots of opportunity in the United States, and we're using the similar strategy of our lending program and our equity development program to build deal pipelines in the United States. That's how we found we've been able to expand without having to expose ourselves to excess competition. Today we're just short of $2 billion. Like I said, we'll end the year at probably about $2 billion. We have a goal which we think is entirely achievable to get to $5 billion in 5 years.
I do believe my clients benefit from my personal relationship with Centurion. What I find with Centurion is they're one of the best at reporting to my investors. Being that it's an exempt market or private equity, there's really no mandate for the issuers to provide any kind of information to the investors. Centurion, to their credit, does provide a quarterly statement to my clients. They also provide a secured website where my clients can go in and actually access their statements and see what's going on with their statements. I don't know of any other issuers that do that right now. What I found with Greg and Centurion is they were very frugal with how they spent their money. And I find that very, very comforting to know that he's very conservative how he spends the money from the investor point of view. And the returns in the last 13 years have been nothing short of outstanding. The last 22 months, they have returned almost 35% to my investors. To say that my investors are very happy would be an understatement.